Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacy McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. A lot of times during my journey, people always said, you've got to turn that weakness into a strength, which means you've got to work hard to turn those things you're not good at into something that just comes natural to you. Well, I think they were wrong. I think they were idiots. And I think if you follow that advice, you're going to find yourself in a lot of trouble. In this episode, it's all about how do you find your strengths, go all in on those, and help you find the success you're looking for. Hey, champions, it's going to be another fun episode of Kick-Ass Fridays. These are a lot of fun for me as I continue down this journey and have fun with this podcast, just enjoying the ride of hearing other people's stories. But as I always say, Kick-Ass Fridays, that's my day to shine, my day to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. And on this week's episode, it's all about finding your strengths. Growing up as a kid, I used to hear people I looked up to, mentors, teachers, all these things that said, if you work on those things that you're not good at and you turn those weaknesses into a strength, you'll be able to accomplish and do everything you ever wanted to do in life. Well, let me tell you, those people were idiots.
It's dumb. Why waste your time and energy working on shit you're not good at? Instead, why not you figure out what you're strong at? Go big and loud on that. And watch what starts to open up for you and watch what starts happening. Now, I'm going to share with you guys, my journey, my story. I'm going to walk you through very tactically this time, the things I did to find the strengths in my life that really helped me start becoming better in those areas and finding better levels of success, whether it was in my sales career, whether it was in my training career, all of these things that I've done, and even down to this podcast, by finding and focusing on these strengths, the universe has stepped up a time or two and really just said, hey, about time. So sit back and enjoy. Let's have some fun. And we're going to talk all about how do you find your strengths. So I think a lot of people, if you were to ask them what their strengths are, because I've done it in front of rooms, and what I find is when you ask that question, you get some people that immediately start writing answers down. And then you get some people that kind of get the deer in a headlight looks. And I want to talk about the people with the deer in a headlight looks. They've never looked at and thought, okay, what really is my strength in life? What am I good at? What do I do that just comes naturally and easily to me? And it's interesting to hear, people stumble over this idea, and it's because the society tells people that you are supposed to, work on your weaknesses, get better at those, and turn those into a strength. And it's funny to me. I just don't get it. And I think it's probably because people often give advice, in an area that they need help with, an area that they need new ideas in. And it's funny because as people go through their journey giving advice, it's really them talking to themselves. And I think that's what happens when a lot of bad advice gets thrown out there. And, the bad advice that I'm talking about right now is 100% stop worrying about your weaknesses. It's a negative mindset. When you start thinking, I'm not good at insert whatever you're not good at, you're telling your subconscious to bring you more of that crap, right? And you get frustrated with yourself. I'll go back into my sales career and, I wasn't really good at the small talk. I didn't know how to create small conversations because I didn't know how to communicate effectively. And, what happened was I'd find myself sitting across from a prospect and trying to make small talk and stumble over myself. And next thing you know, I'm going into some diatribe of a sales pitch that they tuned out within the first 2 minutes. And it's because people always told me, you got to make small talk. So I was trying to make small talk. Well, that obviously wasn't a good thing for me to do. So I just got frustrated and I defaulted to doing sales pitch that nobody listened to. And I love to have been a fly on the wall to a lot of my early sales meetings with prospects, because I can remember walking in, with all my pamphlets and brochures and stuff, and I sit across from somebody, and it was pretty much, how are you? Nice to meet you. Let me tell you what I'm selling, right? And I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but people used to carry around these wallets with the family pictures in it, and you'd pick the wallet up, and the picture thing would tumble out, and you'd have 20 pictures in this little, accordion-like thing in your wallet. That's what my sales pitch was like. It was like I'd walk up and just verbally vomit all over everybody. It's because I sucked at the small talk aspect of it, and that was my attempt to try and make small talk is I just verbally puked all over people. But people kept telling me, Donnie, you've got to get the small talk down. And it's just not a strength of mine. What I did learn is a strength of mine is asking questions and getting curious. It's a real strength of mine. I love getting in and getting to know people. Once I started focusing more on being that natural curious self, my sales calls completely changed because I really gave a damn about the person I was sitting across from and wanted to know more about them. And it got to the point where I wasn't bringing presentations in. I was just going in and getting to know somebody. And it was a cool experience. When you focus on your weaknesses, all you're doing is reinforcing that negative thought process in your mind, and it's doing nobody any good. So we're going to talk about your strengths and everything, but I want you to start thinking about right now, what am I strong at? What just seems to come naturally for me? Now, I want to put one caveat on that. I don't think they're a natural born anything. Now, there's an exception to every rule, right? I think everything is learned. And I think it's all based off of how you're brought up and the things you're exposed to. There's a lot of theories and ideals around what kids are exposed to young, that may become natural for them later. If you expose a child to piano and they're playing piano at early ages, later in life, people are like, well, that's a natural talent for them. Well, no, it's a learned skill. Same thing with sales, same thing with public speaking, same thing with whatever you're trying to get into. Everything's a learned skill. And the first time you ever try anything, you're never just immediately successful at it. You may find some successes, but you're going to have to work your butt off to get good at anything. So it's easier to work at things that work with your strengths versus things that, you're not great at and trying to reinforce and do more with those. So, for instance, one of the things like asking questions for me led to me being a pretty good public speaker and standing in front of audiences, because I always get my speeches into a Q&A session. It's my fun, favorite portion of a speech. And when you stand in front of the room, you can't just answer questions when people ask you questions. You've got to get them engaged in the conversation. So when I started doing a lot of speaking, I started off with these hard canned presentations, and I found myself, getting frustrated if people screwed me up and got me out of rhythm. I remember one of my early speeches I was speaking about networking at an event, and I had this whole thing planned out. And my thought of the speech was, you start here, you do this in the middle, and you end it here, and you just went, because that's what I'd seen all the gurus do, right? I mean, all the gurus got up there and stand on stage, and they, walked you through whatever they were talking about. So that's what I was going to do. And in doing those, particular things, people would ask questions or anything during my speech, and they would completely throw me off my game. By embracing that I'm really good at asking questions, I just started leading the whole thing out, all my speeches out, with a series of questions that got people thinking and got them engaged. And then I learned that by using questions, I don't have to have a canned speech. I don't have to have a canned presentation. I can go and just share my story, share what I've been through, share what I've done, and people get it and they engage in a conversation. So when we know what our strengths are, we can get really good at figuring out how to accomplish pretty much anything. Like this podcast for me, I know my strength is storytelling, finding people's stories, questions, and I'm using every bit of those strengths to get good content out of people. And I love the stories I get to hear on the show. But enough about me. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about how you can find your strengths and the things I went through to really discover what my strengths were. So I hope you're in a spot. I know a lot of people listen to this as they're driving, so don't do this while you're driving. Come back to it later and write these things down. But I'm going to give you a lot of tactics to help you find your strengths. So the first one I want you to do, we're going to do friends and family interviews. So I want you to do something that's really kind of fun. I want you to make a couple lists of your closest loved ones, a list of other people that you really trust but are going to give you honest feedback. And I say loved ones because you want people that you can look at and say, look, I'm looking for real advice. I'm looking for real opinions here. And same thing with these close friends is you're looking for people that when you ask, they're going to give you real feedback. So a couple of ground rules for this step in finding your strengths is you have to remove emotions from this conversation. Okay? You have to take yourself out of the conversation and just embrace the feedback. Because people are going to tell you things that you haven't thought about. And there's no this, oh, I'm not that, I don't have that type of thing. It's embrace it. So the ground rules, don't take offense, acknowledge the feedback, and then tell them that you're on a mission to find your strengths. And you need to tell them that they need to be brutally honest. Ask them to tell you what skills you're excellent at. Then ask them what skills you suck at, right? What skills are natural strengths for you and what skills are not natural. So the way I did this for me was I created a column on the left side of a sheet of a bunch of names. Okay, and this is friends, this is family, people I knew if I asked a question would give honest feedback. And to the right, I put two more columns. At the top of the columns, I put skills that came easy, skills I sucked at, right? And I know I've got all these mental positive thinkers going, he can't say things like suck at because it's a negative mindset. It is, but it's truth. You suck at the skill, you suck at the skill, okay? And so I want you to go to each person. Now, I did these all face-to-face for me because I wanted to get that real feedback. If you're not 100% comfortable getting the face-to-face real feedback, send this to them in an email and ask them to fill it out. But basically, you're asking them, each of these individuals, friends and families, to list out what skills come natural to you. What skills are you a rock star in? Did they see in you that you put out there on a regular basis? And then ask them, what skills do you suck at? What things don't come natural? What things do they see? And, for instance, communication wasn't necessarily a strength, but asking questions was. Writing, and if you followed me on my Facebook or my social media platforms, writing and grammar, not my thing. And I just have fun with it. And I'm not trying to double down and get better at writing. I'm just embracing it and laughing with people. And, people tell me, Donnie, that puts out an image when you don't write well. Well, yeah, it does, but it's me. So I just roll with it. So you want to go get real feedback from all the people that are really close to you and get your strengths and weaknesses. And I'll tell you, if you can get 10 to 20 people to answer this question, you're going to find some real things. And why I say 10 to 20 is, like, your mom's not going to want to tell you what you suck at, right? Your mom's not going to want to say, dude, you are horrible at this. Your mom's going to say things like, oh, honey, you're great at everything. And that's not the feedback you're looking for. What you're looking for is, dude, you completely kick ass at X. Dude, you really suck at X, right? That's real feedback that you're looking for. So make those lists of all those people, okay? And write them all out. And don't worry about what you find until you get done with all of them. Don't analyze each one of these questions with people. Just get the information back and compile it. Once you have the feedback back from everybody, now you can sit down and you're going to go through it, okay? And you're going to ask yourself, some 4 major questions that will help you discover some of your strengths. So question number 1 you're going to ask is, what skills appeared most in what am I good at? What am I great at? What popped up the most? I want you to go back through your list from this interview and circle or write down the things that popped up the most. Because what you should see, after all these, 20 conversations, that you should see some things pop up on a regular basis that people are like, dude, you just rock at this, okay? The second one is what skills appear most in this is what I suck at. And what you're going to see is there's a bunch of the sames, a bunch of things that you're just not good at. And when you find those things, circle, make a list of those. And then the third question you have to ask is, after going through those two lists, what am I great at, what do I suck at, is what was I surprised by? What really jumped up and shocked me as I went through these lists? And I think you're going to get some eye-opening things, because often people don't like to acknowledge, things that are good about themselves. I don't know if there's some psychology behind this or not, but people a lot of times don't want to tell you what they're good about themselves because I feel like they're bragging or something. Well, it's not bragging. It's just who you are, so embrace it. So write down everything that surprised you. And then I want you to write down, what is your biggest lesson learned? As you went through those 20 interviews, as you found out what you came natural to you found out what you sucked at, you know what you're surprised by. I want you to write down, what were your biggest lessons learned from that exercise? And I kind of want you to write out the story of the dialogue of, these are my biggest lessons learned, and here's what I uncovered as my strengths. And what's interesting is going through this process is that you're really going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn about it through the eyes of other people that are going to give you honest and real feedback. This was a phenomenal exercise for me. I really enjoyed it. I will tell you that a couple of my friends were so brutally honest that I had to bite my tongue. Because when they were telling me the things that I was good at, my bullshit meter was going off. And look, it's their opinion, not mine, right? This is what they see. I can't judge their statements, good or bad. I just have to embrace them. And then the same people who said these were the things that came natural to you that were really on spot, dude, when they came back and said this is what you sucked at, dude, I had to take it on the chin. I mean, because some of the things they brought out, I had to take a hard look at, because there were some of the things that were pointed out that I thought was a strength for me, and it wasn't. So you have to take judgment out of it and just embrace it. And I'm going to give you a couple of other ways to prove that those are strengths or not. But this beginning process will help you really uncover you so you can figure out how to move forward in life. So the second way of finding your strengths is understanding just what you're good at. Okay? What this is we're going to really reflect on, your past gifts and talents and really look for those strengths that can help you move forward. Okay. This one's sometimes a little bit more tough. That's why we do the interviews first. So what you're going to do in this exercise is, once again, don't do this while you're driving, but I want you to make a list of everything that comes natural to you. I mean, really take a deep dive and look at the things you did better than others. And people really struggle with this one, because I get the people who are like, well, I'm just not good at anything. Well, that's bullshit. It's not true. You have something that you do that just feels like it comes natural, and you do it better. Maybe, you were a reader. Maybe you were a writer. Maybe it was sports. Maybe it was board games. Maybe it was playing games online. Maybe it was making friends. Maybe it was gardening. Maybe it was listening. Maybe it was hugs. I don't care. There are things that come natural to you. It could be maybe you kicked ass in band or choir, or science came really easy for you. And what you're going to find is there are things that, as you think back on your life, just felt like breathing. They felt like that you could do without any thought or anything else. And here's a hint to help you out. Go back and look at your interviews. Go back and look at the conversations you had with those 20 people you interviewed. And I'm betting that a lot of these things pop up during those interviews. Somebody's going to say things like, when you were in band, you were amazing. Your passion, or I love the way you did science growing up. Like my niece, Madeline, 11 going on 12 years old. And if she were to come to me and say, what are her strengths? I love looking at her. And dude, when she comes and sees you, and she's getting that teenage years, but when she comes and sees you, she is so excited to see you. And it doesn't matter if you spent all day working out on the farm, you're sweaty, nasty. I mean, she may give you that gross type, thought that little girls do. But when she comes up to you, she's so excited to see you. And she does that with everybody. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But that's the kind of things you're looking for that come natural to you. Is, for her, I tell her natural strength is 100% making others feel loved. Right? So those are the type of things you're looking for is, what are those things that you're just amazing at? And here's another hint. They make you feel good because you just do them well. Okay? What I want you to do is make a list of all of these. Everything that pops in the head, right? And I want you to really dive into those things that come naturally to you, okay? And make a list of them. Then, next to each one of those things that comes naturally to you, I want you to write down what skills it takes to be good at that talent. If writing was a thing for you, what skills does it take to be a good writer? If reading's a big thing for you and it comes naturally to you, what skills come into play? So let's do reader because that one's more fun. Is what's it take to be a good reader? My other niece, she can sit for hours in books, right? And just get lost in books. Well, to do that, you've got to have patience. You've got to have the ability to daydream, right? You've got to have the ability to visualize the story. You've got to have the ability to turn off the world around you, right? You've got to have the ability to feel the story. These are all skills that it takes to be a really good reader. And I think if you look at each one of these talents of yours that feels like it comes naturally to you, and you start looking at the skills, you're going to be amazed at what you find. So to do this step, literally write down everything that feels like it comes natural. Okay? So the way I did this is I took a sheet of paper and I wrote out the word talent, right? What is my natural talent? And then underneath that, I wrote the word skills, and I literally made a list of every skill it required to be good at that talent, that thing that felt like it came natural to me, right? And guys, this was a fun exercise because what I found was I was validating the interviews of what people said were skills that came natural to me because now they were starting to pop up when I was looking at my talents. What are those things that came natural? And this really, really was a fun exercise to understand me a lot more. And once you go through each talent and you list out every skill, right? Now I want you to do the lesson learned process. So here's what I want you to do is when you wrote out the skills, not the talents, the skills, what skills appeared most in what are you great at? Right? What are those skills that when you said, I have a talent, these are the skills required to pull that talent off? Which ones popped up the most? And interesting is when you do this exercise, you're going to really be blown away of what you found. The next one is what skills didn't pop up as part of this? What were those skills that popped up in the interviews but did not pop up as part of this process? It's very telling when you're looking at, okay, here's what people are saying I'm strong at. Here's what my feel like my natural talents are. Where's the misalignment? Okay. Then same thing. I want, what were you surprised by? What things did you discover during this process that you went, huh? And I'll tell you, you don't always have to be surprised. Standing in front of thousands of rooms, giving speeches, I always ask what you're surprised by. And some people feel bad. They're like, I really wasn't surprised by anything. I'm just inspired, or I just learned this. I'm like, you don't have to be surprised. But some people really get ahas going through this process. So that's why I always leave the surprise in there. And then the last question underneath, your talent section is, what is your biggest lessons learned? What did you take away? What did you learn as part of this process? And I think you're going to be shocked at what you find once you really start looking at what are your talents and how to dissect those out and turn them into something. It's a really, really fun exercise. Okay. Number 3, the third step in finding your strength is you're going to have to get really personal. And we're going to talk about how you discover your hidden talents. We want to look at whatever others have already said about you over the years. Your strengths, they've already been written down somewhere. You just forgot about them. So that's what we're going to do. Here's how you do it. Objective number 3 is I want you to go find that box in your attic that has all your trophies, awards, medals, citations, ribbons, write-ups, anything you have ever received in a positive manner, okay? Anything that has been written about you ever. You get a note from a girl in junior high or guy in junior high, and that's in a box somewhere. I want that note, okay? And we all have this thing laying around somewhere. The great thing about social media is it's there too. People write nice notes and messages to there. I want you to go find all of those, right? And I want you to get all this stuff together, okay? And once you have all this stuff, I really want you to take an afternoon and just read it, all of it. If you can't find the box of stuff that has all these notes in it, I want you to go to whoever raised you, mom, dad, a caregiver, whatever else, and ask if they have it. If they don't, then I want you to go back to everybody you interviewed and ask them, what awards did you get over the years? And here's an interesting thing about me is I have a lot of this stuff in citations, from the Marine Corps, Employee of the Year awards and things like that. But I had never gone back to read it. It's kind of like one of those things, you got it and you threw it in a box and forgot about it. Well, it was amazing to go back and read some of these things because I forgot about it. And you're going to be surprised at how warm and good this makes you feel, because these are people that are loving on you with what you've done on your journey. And I went back and I remember asking mom some of these questions, and she brought up things that I'd forgotten about. Track races in elementary school and, other things. And it's good to reflect back on these things, because we often forget the good stuff. We always remember the bad stuff. So this is a great exercise for more than just finding your strengths, but we're going to stay finding your strengths. Once you've read through all of this good stuff, I want you to write down, what did the people say? Write down the stuff that made you smile when you read it, but also write down the stuff that made you cringe. So in going through this process, what I discovered is I had the good stuff, but I also had some of the bad stuff. I received corporate write-ups in corporate America where, I wasn't Johnny on the spot. And I've received reprimands in my career, and I had those. And that's what I want you to really look at and embrace is, what are those things that just made you smile, and what are those things that didn't? And you're going to take all those and you're going to write it all down. So what awards? So how I did this is I wrote, what are my awards list? And I wrote down every award that I ever received in my life. It was quite shocked. It was fun because some of the ones I got in like third grade, were cute and funny. Some of the ones I got later in life I forgot about, so it was fun to go through. And what I want you to do is once you write down all these awards, don't leave anything out. And for some of you overachiever sports nuts in high school that have, the 500 medals, I want all of that, okay? I want you to remember each one of those wins. I want you to, science geeks, you won the science fair or anything like that, I want you to remember that win and all that stuff. And what I want you to do is once you have your list of awards, I want you to write down that award, and then underneath that, I want you to write down what made me happy about that award. What did I love? What skills came into play by winning that award? And then I want you to write down your cringe skills. What are those skills that made me cringe when I thought it? So what I did is I looked at a lot of things that I found that I was reprimanded in, which I don't know why I kept those, but I did. And I wrote down how I felt being reprimanded in those moments and what skills that I put in play to help me get that reprimand. And I also found in doing this exercise that I wrote down what skills made me happy about getting the award. And then I also wrote down why I wasn't happy sometimes getting those awards. And it was very, very telling going through this exercise because I had to discover a lot about myself. And one of the things that I found is I just didn't like the limelight unless I chose the limelight. So if somebody gave me an award, as long as I could control that stage and that presence, I was fine. But it is the blindsided awards that I felt uncomfortable because I felt like I wasn't in control of the situation. It was very, very telling. So go through each one of those awards, write down your happy skills, your cringe skills, and we're going to go to the last portion of that, which is, your lessons learned. So as you went through each one of those awards, what skills appeared most? What things did you see that made you happy? What skills popped up and you felt great about? And then what skills, made you cringe? What skills became those things that you didn't feel good about? And once again, you're going to really start looking at this list and start seeing a theme with all of these things that keep popping up. And then I want you to do the same question is what were you surprised by going through the awards section? And then, what were your biggest lessons learned? What were your big takeaways? And this one was really huge for me. And I realized that I love the attention as long as I can control the attention. It was a pretty cool exercise. So go through all that and see what you discover. Now that you've gone through all three of these activities, and, I'll tell you, it probably took me about a week to get through all these. Once you go through all three of these activities, now I want you to go back through all the sections and write down what are the common themes. What are your strengths? What skills kept popping up? What are those things that you felt like came naturally to you? What were those things that others said you were good at? And I want you to write them all down. This was a lot of fun for me. I discovered a lot about myself in this process of things that others saw in me. And man, it was just fun. I really, really enjoyed this exercise and going through it. And then once you write all those things down and you put in smiley faces and everything else next to them, what I want you to do is your final lesson learned. What skills appeared most? What skills popped up in the least that I need to stay away from? What were you surprised by this whole activity? And what were your biggest lessons learned in doing this? Guys, I promise is if you go through this entire exercise of finding your strengths and you go through this entire thing discovering what feels like it comes natural, what you're good at, what others think you're good at, you're going to be absolutely inspired and amazed at what you find. Stop focusing on your weaknesses. Stop focusing on the things that just aren't getting you where you want to be in life, and start focusing on the things that you feel like they come awesome to you and rock and roll and go. I really hope this helps you out, guys, on your journey. It's been an amazing ride for me as I discover more and more about myself. I really appreciate you listening to the show. Do me a favor. Please go over to iTunes and rate this and review the show. It'd mean everything to me if you would share this out to more and more people so we can touch more and more lives. I love you guys very much. Appreciate you for everything. Keep going big and loud and keep inspiring others. Have fun, champions. Talk to you soon.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, "Get my social content done right now."